Archaeologists were shocked when reports surfaced of a discovery buried deep inside the Grand Canyon.
There are secrets in the Grand Canyon, about the Grand Canyon, that a lot of people have not really disclosed.
In 1908, explorer G.E. Kincaid traveled the Colorado River and climbed thousands of feet up a canyon wall.
Kincaid actually reached the cave from the Colorado River himself, climbing up.
What he claimed to find was a hidden cavern carved by human hands. Inside were tunnels, strange symbols, and artifacts that did not match known native cultures. Then the records stopped. Kincaid vanished from history, along with the men tied to his report. What was uncovered there still unsettles researchers today.
Grand Canyon is extremely well monitored by the U.S. government, but there are some interesting areas that access is not allowed.
Explorer Kincaid in the Grand Canyon. In the early 20th century, a remarkable story appeared on the front page of the Arizona Gazette that has since captured the attention of explorers, theorists, archaeologists, and historians. This is the tale of G.E. Kincaid, an adventurer who, while navigating the Colorado River deep within the Grand Canyon in 1909, stumbled upon an astonishing discovery. The article revealed that Kincaid noticed unusual stains high up on the canyon wall about 2,000 feet above the river, tied off his boat, and climbed up to investigate. He couldn't believe his eyes when he found hundreds of carved stone steps that led to a cavern entrance. When he looked at the entrance, he believed that it was man-made. Inside this cavern was not just a cave, but an immense underground network of passageways, rooms, granaries, metalworking shops, and even burial chambers with mummies and artifacts that couldn't be explained by normal archaeologists. The walls were covered in ancient hieroglyphics, and the central chamber contained statues that resembled figures from distant cultures, including an idol Kincaid compared to Buddhist or Tibetan imagery. According to the report, he found copper tools, gold and ceramic vessels, engraved stone tablets, and a complex that's so large it could have housed tens of thousands of people. When he made this shocking discovery, he sent a selection of relics and meticulous notes to the Smithsonian Institution, which responded by dispatching a team led by a Professor S.A. Jordan to excavate and study the site. This narrative has remained for a long time, but on one hand, some researchers say there's no historical evidence that this ever happened, as investigators have not found any trace of Kincaid, Jordan, or the 1909 expedition. On the other hand, experts and archaeologists point to signs of a cover-up. Despite this, the story of what Kincaid discovered has been surrounded by rumors of lost civilizations and suppressed discoveries. The Grand Canyon is rich in discoveries and cultures, and the report revealed that when Kincaid and Professor Jordan looked into the vast complex, they found something they didn't expect. What they discovered. What they discovered in the Grand Canyon might feel like an Indiana Jones thriller, with hidden chambers, mummies, hieroglyphs, and evidence of an unknown ancient civilization. According to the 1909 Arizona Gazette, Kincaid found an entire city carved into a canyon wall about 2,000 feet above the Colorado River. Aside from the passageways and rooms that were found in the canyon, they also found places that seemed to be granaries, sleeping quarters, workshops, and a massive crypt filled with rows of mummies carefully placed on carved shelves. The walls and artifacts were actually adorned with mysterious hieroglyphic inscriptions that defied local Native American styles, and objects made of copper, bronze, and even an unknown gray metal. To make this even stranger, it seemed like the metal was some sort of advanced technology that was unseen in pre-Columbian North America. The cavern's central chamber seemed to house a statue of a godlike figure, cross-legged and holding lotus flowers. But when looking at the face of the statue, researchers noticed that it looked like Egyptian or Tibetan cultural traditions. According to the Gazette, when Kincaid sent the artifacts and detailed notes to the Smithsonian Institution, it led to a major expedition led by a scientist named Professor S.A. Jordan. The pair believed that the site was too sophisticated, which meant that the builders were there way before the Native Americans lived in that region. This was a shocking discovery by experts. They stated that the site in the Grand Canyon might have originated from Asia, possibly even Egypt. This changed everything that archaeologists thought about the history of the area, because it implies that foreigners came to America many years before, and even constructed homes for their communities, recording history and hieroglyphics on the walls. But this is where the trail goes cold. After they made these discoveries, the funding was denied by the Smithsonian to continue investigating the case. To make it even more mysterious, both explorers vanished and were never seen again, fueling claims of a cover-up. Aside from the report in the newspaper, there are no records of the expedition that can be found, and the explorer and professor went missing. The Smithsonian's own Department of Anthropology has explicitly stated that no Egyptian artifacts have ever been found in North or South America, and that no such excavation is on record. But some other researchers say that this might just be a cover-up to suppress prehistoric discoveries that might change the course of history. Still, the Grand Canyon is now being guarded by the U.S. government today, so it's hard to look into the mystery. Also, Kincaid and Professor Jordan were never heard from again. Still, the Grand Canyon remains a spot for tourists and has some strange legends and mysteries that point to something deeper. Indigenous legends, even with the discovery made by Kincaid. There are many indigenous narratives about the canyon and its people, deeply rooted in cultural cosmologies, creation beliefs, and sacred geography, which we still pay attention to today. Central to Hopi oral tradition is the belief that their ancestors did not simply appear on the surface of the world, but emerged from beneath it, often through a sipapu. This means a portal or small opening that takes a person from the previous world into the current one. In Hopi mythology, the sipapu signifies the place where the first peoples stepped out into this world, shedding ancient forms and taking their place as human beings. The original sipapu is actually connected to the Grand Canyon region, as some think that this canyon is a portal to another world, not just a physical landmark. Another enduring Hopi legend involves the Ant People, which are subterranean beings that played an important role during times of upheaval. According to the Hopi people, there were catastrophic world ages. One ended in fire and another ended in ice. This threatened the survival of the Hopi ancestors. There have been claims that the mythic Ant People resemble extraterrestrials or gray beings, but in traditional contexts, they express themes of rebirth, refuge, and cultural continuity. Another myth even says that lizard people emerged in the Grand Canyon. According to the myth, many thousands of years ago, a reptilian race emerged in this area and then changed to humans. They are people shifters that have been found in other regions apart from the Grand Canyon. Other indigenous groups around the Grand Canyon hold their own emergence and creation stories. For example, the Hualapai trace their emergence into this world through Spirit Mountain and connect their origins to river valleys and ancestral homelands. Although these narratives don't look into the giant underground cities and suppressed artifacts in the Grand Canyon, they are still a part of the past of this strange region. And as we all know, there are always a bit of truths in myths and legends. Flood myths and post-cataclysm civilizers. As theorists and experts look into the mysterious caverns and the ancient artifacts in the Grand Canyon, There's one universal theme that they look into, and that's the Great Flood myth. These stories have come from the biblical tale of Noah and the Ark, and ancient Mesopotamian epics. They describe cataclysmic waters that reshape the world, wipe away a corrupted past, and set the stage for a new humanity. In Genesis, God chooses Noah to preserve life from a divinely sent deluge by building an ark and saving his family and the world's animals. After the flood subsides, life begins anew, and humanity is reborn from this singular act of survival and obedience. Long before the biblical account was written, Mesopotamian traditions told of similar events. The Epic of Gilgamesh features Utnapishtim, a figure instructed by a god to build a massive boat to survive a flood meant to destroy humankind. After the waters recede, Utnapishtim and his wife endure and are granted eternal life, linking the flood not just to destruction, but to divine favor and renewal. Other Akkadian and Sumerian texts, like the Atrahasis epic, also recount catastrophic floods sent by gods, reflecting a shared theme of divine judgment followed by rebirth. Across continents, there have been other narratives. In Greek mythology, Zeus floods the earth due to human hubris, and Deucalion and Pyrrha repopulate it, throwing stones that transform into people when the waters retreat. In Hindu tradition, the story of Manu and the Matsya avatar mirrors this pattern, with a divine fish warning the first man to preserve life before a vast flood. South American traditions like the Inca tale of Unu Pachacuti describe a deluge sent by a creator god that destroys giants and ushers in a new human era. This parallels how ancient flood myths often involve supernatural guidance or intervention after destruction, marking a transition from chaos to order. Of course, these are just myths, but there has been some evidence and cover-ups related to the Kincaid Cave. After all, legends have some truth. Evidence and cover-ups. All myths and legends carry at least a seed of truth. It's factual, for instance, that people reached North America long before Columbus. Vikings sailed around the Atlantic around the year 1000 AD and established a settlement at L'Anse aux Meadows in what is now Newfoundland, nearly 500 years before Columbus's 1942 voyage. Archaeological remains of sod-framed buildings, ironworking evidence, and artifacts confirm that Norse explorers were present and active there at that time. This shaped a pre-Columbian chamber of contact that once lived only in saga and legend. But it seems like there might be some hidden chapters and secrets of human movement and cultural encounter buried beneath the official statement, which says, "Nothing was found." The 1909 newspaper report might just be another piece of this lost history. Kincaid and the Smithsonian scientist S.A. Jordan was stunned by an archaeological trove which actually predated the Native American occupation of the region. When they disappeared, it seems to point to a larger cover-up. But when researchers examine the evidence with the tools of professional archaeology and historical verification, the story collapses. The Smithsonian Institution has stated that there are no records of such expedition, or of Professor Jordan, or of Kincaid himself, and that they don't hold any artifacts of any kind. This seems to be signs of a cover-up, as there are no archives or material traces supporting the original announcement. A century of archaeology in the Grand Canyon has never produced the mysterious complex described in the Gazette, and extensive surveys would almost certainly have documented such significant finds if they existed. Tales of voyages to lands long before Columbus resonate because we already know the story of the Vikings, backed by real archaeological discovery. Conspiracy-tinged narratives about restricted lands and surveillance tap into a broader cultural fascination with untold secrets and forbidden knowledge. But the underground city in the Grand Canyon remains a captivating story. But because of the limited evidence, many say that this might be a myth or a hoax instead. Myths and hoaxes. The legend of Kincaid's Cave in the Grand Canyon has not yet been widely verified, and many say this is a myth and hoax in American lore. It began with a 1909 Arizona Gazette article that read like an adventure serial. An explorer named G.E. Kincaid allegedly found steps carved into the canyon wall, leading to a vast underground citadel filled with Egyptian-style hieroglyphics, mummies, copper tools, engraved tablets, and statues resembling Eastern deities, all supposedly sent to the Smithsonian for study. At first glance, the tale of buried corridors and a lost civilization appeals to our deepest curiosity about hidden history. The idea that a complex pre-native society once dwelled deep within the canyon is interesting, with forgotten worlds and undiscovered secrets. Yet, when historians and researchers trace the evidence, they say that this is sensational yellow journalism and not documented history. The Gazette is the only newspaper that recorded this, and there are no other news reports or official records. Today, modern experts and newspapers say that the tale is false and that there are no files or artifacts linked to such a discovery. Additionally, the symbols and artifacts described in the original article don't align with authentic Egyptian hieroglyphic systems or archaeological patterns. But the myth persists, in part because the Grand Canyon does have features with Egyptian and mythological names like Isis Temple and Horus Temple. This seems like hidden evidence rather than normal names. Furthermore, restricted access to some caves for scientific and conservation reasons is often conflated with conspiracy theories about government suppression. In reality, archaeologists emphasize that extensive surveys in the canyon have yielded no credible evidence of ancient Egyptian or otherwise lost civilizations deep beneath its cliffs. Modern expeditions, from the myths to the indigenous legends, the modern conspiracy-flavored storytelling around the Grand Canyon's forbidden depths takes an even more dramatic turn when it comes to modern expeditions. Independent explorers are attempting to retrace the steps of the supposed 1909 find, only to be rebuffed, watched, or even chased off by authorities, helicopters, or unseen forces. That has caused many to believe that something is being suppressed or hidden. Several small groups have ventured into the remote parts of the canyon where Kincaid's Cave is said to lie because of speculation, satellite searchers, and the lure of rediscovering a lost underground city. One couple, Jerry and Kathy Willis, spent many years studying the original clues from the Arizona Gazette, and they conducted field research around the canyon rim. They were shocked when they found a site that was littered with artifacts that they believe date back to Kincaid's era, and even found what seems to be a hidden entrance to the cavern. This was a dark fissure in the canyon wall just below their camp area, but as soon as they approached, an unmarked plane appeared above them, even though the area has been designated as a no-fly zone. This made them feel watched, and they were warned off. Later, another group exploring from above was confronted with an Apache attack helicopter, and that forced them away, intensifying suspicions that someone was stopping others from accessing the site. The story they told made the cover-up theme even stronger. Today, the Grand Canyon Cave has many restricted areas, and while this is because of environmental and cultural restrictions, others say it's because they don't want the world to find the secrets of Kincaid. Many caves within Grand Canyon National Park are closed to the public and require valid permits for authorized scientific research. Others, like Stanton's Cave and parts of the Inner Canyon, are gated or formally restricted to protect sensitive archaeological, paleontological, and biological resources. These legal protections are part of federal management plans and acts like the Federal Cave Resources Protection Act, which aims to safeguard significant cave environments from disturbance. Still, the lack of archaeological evidence for the Kincaid Cave and the official denials from the Smithsonian continue to fuel speculation and conspiracy narratives. There's something strange about this place, as the Egyptian-style names in the canyon point to signs of a hidden history. Hidden history and claims. As the modern narrative around the Grand Canyon's hidden history unfolds, one of the most persistent threads woven into the story is the idea that the rock formations with Egyptian-style names aren't random, but clues to a hidden history. The features in the canyon, such as Isis Temple, Horus Temple, Tower of Ra, Osiris Temple, and even Cheops Pyramid, might be echoes of an ancient connection between the American Southwest and civilizations like Egypt and other Old World cultures. These names are presented as part of a coded landscape. It's evidence that a hidden history lies beneath the canyon's walls, sealed off from public view, and sometimes suppressed by authorities. The proponents of the view often connect these strange names to the sensational 1909 Arizona Gazette story, because the complex was filled with hieroglyphics and suggest an advanced civilization. The concentration of Egyptian and Hindu-linked names suggests this area is special, perhaps where lost evidence or forbidden secrets rest, out of reach because of official denial or restricted access. But there's also an official explanation for this place. In the late 19th century, geologists and explorers such as Clarence Dutton consciously chose names from mythological and religious traditions from around the world, including Greek, Roman, Egyptian, and Hindu pantheons. These names, ratified by the U.S. Board of Geographic Names, were meant to evoke the exotic or monumental, instead of recording actual historical encounters between the distant cultures and the American continent. Despite this, the idea of a suppressed history is widespread. It's not uncommon to encounter claims that evidence of giants or other anomalous finds have been systematically hidden from the public. The Smithsonian Institution has been accused by many conspiracy theorists and historians as a gatekeeper of truth, denying stories and keeping the canyon areas off-limit because there's something to hide. As experts look into the case of the Kincaid Cave, they are divided into two sides which try to explain the possibility of this site existing. Diffusionism versus isolationism debate. The story of the Kincaid Cave in the Grand Canyon taps into a much older intellectual conflict in archaeology and anthropology. This is a clash between diffusionism and isolationism. Experts use that history to frame the Kincaid legend as a suppressed truth. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, scholars were struggling to explain the diversity of human cultures and how similar technologies or ideas appeared in far-flung places. Diffusionism held that the cultural traits, technologies, and innovations spread across the world through contact, trade, or migration, suggesting that distant civilizations might have influenced one another directly. Some extreme proponents, like British anatomist and Egyptologist Grafton Elliott Smith, argued that early civilizations such as Egypt were the source of many cultural practices globally. That's why there were hieroglyphics on the walls and mummies in the Kincaid Cave. This implies that there are similarities in things like mummification or monumental architecture which reflect ancient cross-continental links. On the other hand, isolationism, which became influential in American archaeology, argued that most cultures developed independently, responding to their own environments and histories without any influence from distant civilization. Figures like John Wesley Powell, who directed the Smithsonian's Bureau of Ethnology, opposed diffusionist ideas and contributed to a broader preference for isolationist explanations in early American anthropology. In this view, Cultural development in North America was seen as largely self-contained, with native societies evolving on their own rather than being influenced by old-world civilizations. Leaning into the diffusionism versus isolationism debate, adherents of isolationism actively suppressed evidence, like the alleged Kincaid cave find, because it would support diffusionist interpretations of ancient contact. The caverns filled with Egyptian-style artifacts and hieroglyphics would be an explosive example of trans-ocean influence and direct cultural transmission. That's the kind of discovery that the isolationist school would reject. However, mainstream archaeology doesn't find this framing credible. The Grand Canyon cave story has been widely called a newspaper hoax because there aren't any records or evidence. Still, some say that the debate points to the fact that the Kincaid cave story was suppressed. But there have been some other shocking archaeological discoveries, as some explorers on a boat going towards an isolated area of the Grand Canyon discovered something shocking. Other archaeologist discovery. The Grand Canyon has long been recognized not just for its breathtaking vistas, but for the deep and layered human history concealed within its cliffs and river corridors. Recent archaeological work, coupled with decades of ongoing research, is shedding light on the long-forgotten lives of ancient peoples who once inhabited this iconic landscape. According to the National Park Service, evidence of human presence in the Grand Canyon dates back at least 12,000 years. With Paleo-Indian artifacts marking some of the earliest known human activity in the region. These ancient tools and remnants, including fragments of Clovis and Folsom spear points, underscore the deep antiquity of human travel and settlement in North America's desert heartland. Recently, 2 archaeologists along the Colorado River corridor stepped into the Grand Canyon and shocked the world, deepening our understanding of prehistoric life in the canyon. When this was found, archaeologists from the National Park Service and the Museum of Northern Arizona excavated the 9 eroding sites where river sediments once protected the ancient habitation areas. At these sites, researchers uncovered remnants of multiple occupations spanning more than 3,500 years, including a complete ceremonial kiva, pottery, tools, and other domestic materials used by indigenous peoples over centuries. One of the most prominent archaeological landmarks within the park is the Tusayan Ruins, an 800-year-old Pueblo Indian site featuring storage rooms, living spaces, and a ceremonial structure. The site, carefully excavated in the early 20th century and preserved today, offers a window into the lifeways of ancestral Puebloans who farmed, traded, and built communities throughout the Southwest long before European contact. In a different realm of discovery, paleontologists have revealed that the Grand Canyon preserves exceptionally ancient fossil evidence of life, not just human, but biological. Fossils of soft-bodied organisms from the Cambrian period, including new species of early animals, have been unearthed in the canyon's rock layers, providing an unprecedented view of early evolutionary history more than 500 million years ago. Archaeologists couldn't believe their eyes when they found the records of the Kincaid cave in the newspaper, but it remains stuck between myth and reality. Do you think the cave really exists in the Grand Canyon? Or was it just a hoax? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. So, thanks for watching this video, and we will see you in the next one.